is ego. The people don't ever want to admit they were wrong.
That's a big part of it.
We were talking about this last night about the importance of not being married to your ideas. Your ideas are not you. They're just ideas. And that you have to recognize when you're holding on to ideas because you have made this connection, that you have said this thing and this thing is a part of you. And if you say that this thing is incorrect, then you failed and you're wrong and you're not as good as you. So you try to find a way where you were good. And you try to find a way where you can kind of manipulate language and maybe even fucking change the information. Like, let's imagine if the information was different.
Yeah.
Let's imagine if 10% of the people died. Yeah, but they didn't.
Yeah, like if your argument is reduced to like, okay, you made this point and you were right and I made this point and I was wrong. But imagine a situation where your point was wrong.
Right.
And my point was right. How about now?
Yeah, let's not imagine that.
Yeah,
let's look at what actually happened, and you should be apologizing.
Yeah, it's like we could play your imagination game in a few minutes, but first let's just talk about like what really happened, and who was right and who was wrong.
And how are you discounting this 40% increase in all-cause mortality, or whatever the fuck it is? Yeah. What is it now? You know, it depends upon the statistics that you read, but it's like they're getting that from insurance companies, right? Where they're trying to make an assessment of like what's going on. And there's a lot of people that are very nervous about this because what is the increase in all-cause mortality right now? I think it's like, 18 to 59 or whatever the fuck it is. There's some very bizarre increase.
Yeah.
And I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson trying to say, well, a lot of people were drinking during the pandemic. Like, really? Was there another thing that happened too?
Right.
That may be really crazy. Do you imagine if so many people started drinking, there was a 40% increase in all-cause mortality? Wouldn't there be like shows about alcoholism? Like, ladies and gentlemen, like look at what's happening to our country. There's a 40% imagine there was no pandemic, there's no vaccinations. Imagine all of a sudden a 40% increase in all-cause mortality. And then you just kind of casually say, well, I guess a lot more people are drinking now.
And you're just not, and you're telling me, and look, by the way, I'm not even like ruling out the fact that, okay, I think alcohol consumption maybe went up during the lockdowns, and that could be a contributing factor to this. But you're telling me the starting point has to be we rule out this brand new like medical intervention. Like you can't look at that.
Right.
You're telling me that's the starting point is that can't be part of the conversation.
You're trying to ignore this thing. Imagine if these were just variables in an equation that you were tasked with solving.
Right.
Why would you ignore this very significant variation?
Yeah. And then the truth is like whatever the rate of vaccine injury is. Like whatever that number is, and maybe it's not that high. It's something, okay? It is clearly something, right?
Yes.
There
With drugs.
Clearly there have been a large number of people who have been injured by the vaccine, and then when you look at that and you go, look, and you guys, your position, the entire establishment position was everyone should get it.
Yeah.
Everyone should get it. When there were clearly cases where you really don't have an argument, like a healthy young person who's already had COVID, there's just no argument that they should take on whatever that risk is for something that won't even prevent them from getting COVID. Again, right? There's no argument for that. But you enforce that on them. You enforce, like I know, I knew this kid who's like in grad school, and he got double vaccinated because they were going to kick him out of school if he didn't. And then he got COVID. And then a month later, they insisted he get a booster. Like there is no expert on the planet who can give me a compelling scientific answer, reason why that made any sense at all. Why you were doing anything other than to this 26-year-old kid, making him take on serious risk.
Well,
nothing better. And you insisted on this. So now, like, it's just crazy that you can't even acknowledge that. Like, yeah, we did give people, in many cases, very bad medical advice that had the potential to lead to them being injured.
Yeah, and in many cases did.
Yeah.
And no accountability.
And even, it was one of the craziest moments of the entire pandemic was when you had Dr. Gupta from CNN on here, and then he goes, so you're going to get vaccinated? And you went, no, I just had COVID. Like, why would I get it? And he really had no answer. And this was during the vaccine passport time, when they were trying to force everyone to get it. And yet here was the CNN doctor and had no response other to you than, yeah, you got pretty good immunity. Maybe get some more with the vaccine. You know?
Well, not only that, he was just like, he had to admit that the immunity that was imparted by overcoming an infection is better.
Yeah.
So you didn't get COVID. I got COVID. I recovered. I'm in a better position than you now. And you're telling me to do what you did?
Right.
Why?
And that the policy of the vaccine passports is that he can enter a restaurant that you're not allowed to enter now. When we all agree that you're in a better position than him.
Right.
How does that make any sense?
Because I didn't comply and I'm a bad boy.
Yep.
That's what it is.
That's basically it.
That's literally what it is. Like, you should be a good guy and join our team.
Yep.
You know, and I had smart people that I respect tell me I should get vaccinated after I got over COVID. I'm like, are you not paying attention to any of this? Like, why are you giving me that advice? First of all, imagine if someone got something and they got sick and they got over it and then saying, you can't do it that way. You should do it another way. And you have to do it our way.
And you got over it very quickly, too.
Very quickly.
It's not like you were, like, hospitalized or something like that.
Dude, I did 10 rounds on the bag 6 days after I was infected.
Yeah.
10 rounds. Just to see what it felt like. Felt great. Yeah. Felt like zero impact. I felt like shit for a day.
And it's so, I mean, I know, like, I think we mentioned this before when I was on, but it was one of the episodes that I was on, which back in the height of it, I don't know, like 3 times ago that I was out here, what was the one that went to Fauci, responded to you. And the thing that they found appalling was that your advice to young people was to be really healthy.
Yeah.
That you were like, listen, get yourself in really good shape. Like, exercise a lot, eat well, get a lot of sunlight if you can. If you can't, take vitamin D. You know what I mean? Like, but all this stuff.
They were upset that I was saying, if you're a young person, you're like 21 years old or whatever, don't do it. I don't think you need to do it.
No,
I would
your
tell
advice
them,
was I wouldn't advise you to get the vaccine. I'd tell you just be really healthy.
But that was at the time when we actually knew the statistics of how it affected young people.
And at the same time, Fauci was going door to door, and what he was telling people was, you got to take this vaccine. And when they'd give him pushback and say, yeah, but I heard you can still get COVID even after you take the vaccine, and he'd say, in the unlikely event that you get it, it's going to be so mild you won't even know you were sick. Just lying to them. Yeah. And that's not like, oh, he got it wrong. There was no scientific evidence to like argue that. They never even tested it on transmission.
Not only that, when you go over the trials that they did when they first were investigating the efficacy of this drug, one of the people in the COVID group that got the vaccine died of COVID. Yeah. So they knew that.
Yep.